We're live. Hey, folks. Zach Osterman here, IU Insider, Indianapolis Star. This is Mind Your Banners for Wednesday, October 15th, 2025. Sorry, we are starting a little bit later than promised. My computer forced a system update on me that knocked out my camera, and I had to just kind of reset everything, as HWF3 says, must be using Pacific time around here. He's Mike Niziolek. I'm Zach Osterman. This is Mind Your Banners. We're going to cover a lot of ground in a short space of time today because Mike and I both, as you would imagine, have a lot of work to do. But a couple housekeeping notes. First of all, Michael, there is a Twitter question in the chat, or not a Twitter question, trivia question in the chat. Do you know the two Hoosiers since 2005 to lead the Big Ten in tackles for loss? This in honor of Isaiah Bones Jones, who you wrote about today, who is currently leading the Big Ten, only player in the Big Ten with double-digit tackles for loss through 6 games this season. I guess 7 for a couple of teams. Do you know the two Hoosiers that have done it?
Am I supposed to? I revealed one off air. I mean, do you want me to give you the correct one of the correct?
I think at this point we've had a lot of guesses. Okay. People did in the chat. If people scroll back, they'll know that in the chat, T. Gray Scales is one, and I think the other one's gonna be the harder one to get. But you covered him, so
I did, and he was referenced last night as well as Isaiah Jones said. Cam Jones, Aaron Casey, to Aiden Fisher, guys have all helped him. And Aaron Casey is I think the answer.
Aaron Casey is indeed the answer. At least according to
Ace
Casey.
Ace to Bones.
Ace to Bones. Alexander High School's finest. Aaron Ace Casey. Housekeeping before we get started. Excited to announce this. It's been in the works for a little while. We finally got a date nailed down next Monday, 4 p.m. Home field at Trax down on Kirkwood. Mind Your Banners live and in person. I believe we will have a live stream. How interactive we will be with the comments, I'm not sure yet. I'm not sure exactly what the setup's going to be, but we will be live in person at Home Field Trax. We're going to have Pacers tickets to give away. I think we'll have at least a couple other giveaways as well. We'll be there 4 to 5. We would love to see everyone there. We would love to see all of you come out. Obviously, our good friends at Home Field, thank you so much for hosting us. And believe me, this is not the last you will hear of the live pod, but it's our first time, right? It's our first time like live in person. Hoop says, are we prettier live? The answer is almost certainly no. But yeah, I don't know. It depends on whether or not you shaved.
How dare you?
Let's talk about, so again, one more time, 4 p.m. Monday, October 20th, if you're keeping track at home, on your calendar, Home Field at Trax, Mind Your Banners live and in person. We're excited for it. Let's put a final bow on Oregon. Mike, did you rip off the rearview mirror? Can you even see traffic behind you at this point?
As I pointed out, I just think it's amazing that he spoke 1,800 words, which is a huge amount for him. Usually it's a third. Curt Cignetti
and answered basically none of the questions. I asked about Fernando Mendoza, and he was like, "Interesting question about Fernando Mendoza. Rip the rearview mirror off. No complacency. I want to talk only about."
I mentioned Oregon by name twice, and once was to say Jonathan Smith coached at Oregon State. Just an all-timer for him to sort of say, you guys are in this room, but I'm talking to my team directly. Yes. And that's fine. And
it was a shock that he didn't use the rat poison line. I was braced for it, and it never came.
Yeah, and so obviously he finished celebrating the win after before they got back to Bloomington on the plane, and that's it, and that's over, and we're done talking about that. And it's going to be hard to convince me that Michigan State is the threat that he did. Because I don't know if you watched, and I wrote about this for my preview on just the introduction. They came in the same year, Jonathan Smith and Cignetti, and how vastly different the program directions are, and the tenor of those press conferences. The basic, he did 15 minutes, Jonathan Smith. 3 or 4 questions about his job security and fans calling for him to be bought out. 3 or 4 questions about his team showing no energy and former players telling them commenting during the game that they didn't show up and want to play. I mean,
Well, I think one of them was there were at least one or two former Michigan State players that played for UCLA that said after the game, and I have the benefit sometimes of recording the scouting podcast with like the opposition beat writer. We had our good friend Graham Couch on. That'll be live Thursday. I had the fortune in this conversation of talking to Graham before I talked to you. But I guess Jalen Berger, I believe it was Jalen Berger, transferred from Michigan State to UCLA, and he said after the game, like basically they didn't want to play football anymore.
Yeah,
like that UCLA could feel that.
And so you could see the different. I mean, if you want to talk about programs in different spots, but my larger point is like, Cignetti obviously says we got to focus on this opponent. They're dangerous. I understand focusing on the opponent. I don't know about that they're dangerous. I mean, they are in a bleak place right now.
So is that it? Is that the bow on Oregon? Then we're just moving.
We're moving out. We ripped off the rearview mirror. No, I mean, like what? I don't know what.
What's funny is he said that. I think I told you this on Monday. My wife in college interned at the Arizona Republic in Phoenix, and obviously it's very hot in the summer in Phoenix. And one day she came out to her car, and the rearview mirror had fallen off because the adhesive that held it to the mirror had been melted by the heat. So maybe that's what. Maybe Cignetti just needs to breathe that much heat, and the rearview mirror won't have to be ripped off. It'll just fall off.
No. But what did you have? Any additional thoughts on Oregon?
Honestly, it was probably just that the rearview mirror is off at this point. I mean, it's. I mean, listen, it is a. Like someone called it, Mark called it a signature win. I mean, it's probably the best win in program history. So there is no moving away from that. I get that. Is this an ideal opponent to play next? Like it would be fascinating to know what Indiana would do if UCLA was next. UCLA, the team that invented football. But to your point, I mean, you think about and we don't need to go some deep dive into Michigan State like versus Indiana over the last 2 years, but like Jonathan Smith was pretty much as respected of a hire as Cignetti was. I mean, he was high on my first couple of hot boards, and the whole point was look what he did at Oregon State. Like that's an incredibly difficult place to win. Obviously, he played there, and maybe that helps. But that's an incredibly difficult place to win. He developed quarterbacks. He was. He had them competing at the top end of the Pac-12. It made all the sense in the world. And, I think there are some things, and again, Graham will get into this in the podcast that'll post Thursday. I think there are some things that kind of never quite were aligned for him there in terms of like the process and donors not being brought in at different times and not being able to build those relationships. But man, I mean, like if Indiana has kind of pressed the right button at the right time across seemingly every time across the last 2 years, not just Cignetti, but Scott Dolson, the collective's efforts, all these different things. It feels like Michigan State has basically pressed the wrong one every time. There was the Michigan game last year. There was the Rutgers game. There was, this year, obviously, I mean, they're 0-3 in the conference. And I mean, Graham went so far as to say he thinks if it gets really, really ugly on Saturday, Jonathan Smith
he wrote that. Yeah, I saw that. That was kind of and that's less than almost just a year and a half on the job essentially. So
yeah, but you still got to respect them, right?
Well, you have to pay attention. You have to pay attention to them.
Do you think it helps that it is homecoming, that it is a rivalry game, that it is?
I don't know.
Do you think that registers with this team?
Do you think that registers with anybody anymore that has 50 new players every year?
Probably like when it's good, if that makes sense. Like when things are good, I think that registers. I think when things are bad, it's like I don't care. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I just don't know that, and especially with this team, like if they're saying like last week, Aiden Fisher's like, look, Oregon has a number in front of them, but they're just another opponent. It's like, look, there's a trophy on the line. I don't think that changes the equation, right? Like, I mean, yeah,
I think, and like
you get a prize, but
I don't bring this up to like make fun of anybody, but like there's that video of
People who say that usually means that they're going to make fun of somebody.
I said it with all due respect.
Oh, respectfully.
It's in the Geneva Convention. I had some friends who would watch it. I think the one that became infamous was the post game locker room after the Akron win and Tom Allen's last year, where they're singing the fight song, and it's, I think it's fair to say like nobody is feeling particularly like jovial in that moment. It's obviously not been a great night, whatever. And I have some friends. Who grabbed that, and they still come back to it sometimes. And they're like, "Haha, look at this." And I say, they do that now too. And they did that during the COVID season, and everyone loved it. Those videos went viral. They do it now, and everyone loves it. I think it is kind of this idea that you get it, like it's when it is good, then I think people buy into it. It's like, hey, let's go win the bucket. Let's go win the Spittoon. Let's sing the fight song. Let's have these moments.
I think
it's just easier to detach from it when it's going wrong. Does that make sense?
I think Cignetti is respectful of the idea of that, but do you think he's doing that? Like, you think we got to go win this? No, we got to go win this game to win this game.
Was it Kadick that told him to spit in the Spittoon last year, and he was like, "Yeah, I'm not doing that."
I don't know, but I mean that sounds like an accurate story on both sides. No, but like the idea that you need to win this for this reason other than to win the game is not something that Cignetti does, right? Like the way like his message is what he delivered to us last week. He talked about basically every day indomitable will to beat a team that's like a juggernaut, that beat a team that has that reputation. This week it's clearly going to be like, look, we can't let the win we had sort of distract us from our bigger goals. And it's now what we do with it. Like, did he mention the word rivalry once?
No, I don't think so.
No. So, I mean, another one of the words he didn't say in those 1,800 words. So, it's like the idea, like, it's big because it's the road to Indy. It's the road to a first round bye. And yes, a byproduct is you get to spit in the bucket.
Well, I mean, they do. You and I don't. Maybe that can be a giveaway for the live podcast Monday, October 20th, 4 to 5 p.m. home field at Tracks. Maybe we can get Mark Deal to bring the bucket down, or the spittoon down, and you can spin it. You don't spit in the bucket. You spit in the spittoon. I don't know what you'd put in the bucket. I guess just the little eyes and the peas. That's
well, isn't a spittoon and a bucket the same sort of thing? I mean, it's
no, because I don't think you expect the level of sort of like complete seal from a bucket that you do from this, because like you don't want what you're spitting in the spittoon to leak out. Like it can't leak out. Like it's like that's disgusting. Whereas if there's like a small seam in the bucket and like a little bit of water seeps, I mean, you can live with that, right? But
you're talking about the construction. You're getting detailed, man.
Well, and obviously the materials as well. The bucket is, you wouldn't know that we have a hard out today. So okay, in all seriousness, like let's talk about Michigan State, and I mean just to sort of give people an idea of this team. I think there's a few things, and again, I had the opportunity to sort of prepare for this.
So we're on Mind Your Spartans.
Mind Your Spartans. By talking to Graham yesterday for the scouting podcast tomorrow. Number one, Aiden Childs has been better this year, but is still not like quite like, I mean, he's statistically been better, and there's been a feeling that he at least made some progress, but first of all, he may not play this weekend. He's questionable.
It's like the headline.
Second of all, and perhaps more, I think, pointedly to this conversation, one of the things Graham said was that he felt like some of that progression had started to stall, and the reason why
his numbers, he got knocked out. First of all, he got knocked out of the last two games, which he did in the last year against Indiana, which is obviously red flag. And then his numbers the last two games are like shockingly bad.
Well, and the reason Graham thinks that a lot of it stalled is because Michigan State's offensive line is just like collapsed. Yeah. They are
times this year.
They are tied for last in the conference with 46 tackles for loss allowed with Illinois. And first of all, we remember what Indiana did against Illinois' offensive line. Second of all, Illinois played 7 games. Michigan State has allowed the same number of tackles for loss in just 6 games. The sacks allowed numbers, you will not be surprised to learn, are not much better. They've allowed 15 sacks through 6 games. If you actually look at just like the game log of it all, like the line just isn't good. I think there have been some injuries, but the line just is not good. And the problem you have is, number one, Childs already maybe doesn't trust the line, as you say, is also a little bit banged up and fragile, even if he does play. And then number two, the guy behind him, I believe I'm pronouncing his name correctly. I believe it's Alessio Milivojevic. He's a redshirt freshman. And Graham said there's actually some things technically he does a little bit better. He's like his timing routes and things, he's probably a little bit quicker. The flip side is you're putting a redshirt freshman behind an offensive line that was struggling to manage an offense with a more experienced quarterback behind them. You know, that is not usually a recipe for success. And it's especially not a recipe for success against, I don't think this is, like we were saying last week, is this the best defensive front in the country? I think Oklahoma has a case, certainly. And that's the one team with more TFLs so far this season.
Well, are you saying
than
front,
Indiana.
like front 7 or front 4?
Like front 6, front 7. But I think Indiana has an argument, especially on
that reference. You're not there. Your kids are not there yet, are you?
No. Are we at 6-7? Come on.
Well, you didn't acknowledge it. I just don't know.
I was talking and you interrupted me with.
Well, when that's said, you've got to jump on it. You can't leave it.
You do. That's true. That's true.
What am I supposed to do? That's an obligation.
We had the kids out at Lark Ranch down near Lagodi over the weekend, and we ordered lunch. And again, you can tell we have a hard out time wise today. And the order pops up on and like Jackson and his cousins had all been, my son and his cousins had all just been like 6-7, and sure enough, the ordered number pops up and they call our name.
Here's pandemonium,
and it's just like, would you look at what the order number is?
So yeah, I had to cut you off. I'm sorry.
The point is, it just there's not like you have a front 4, front 6, front 7, however you want to define it, that might be as good as any in the country. And you're either putting a beat-up quarterback that doesn't trust his offensive line behind a bad offensive line, or a struggling offensive line at least, or you're putting a redshirt freshman behind.
Well, it kind of reminds me. The game, the way it unfolded last year. Michigan State did. Look, they went up 10-0. They gave up 47 straight points, and they didn't just look. They looked demoralized by the time midway through that stretch. He gets knocked out of the game. The backup quarterback had no chance in that game.
There were a couple plays where he just
nobody had didn't want you guys take this. I'm gonna go sit on the side. And it just feels like that sort of if you're gonna throw him in, it would be his first career start. I think I wrote yesterday. I think he has 27 career pass attempts. The backup, and so
he has 25. Wait,
or 27 career dropbacks. Maybe that's what it is.
26. Excuse me. He's 14 of 26 for 171 yards, 2 touchdowns and an interception. So,
and I had a buddy that said his first 2 pass attempts were an interception and a pick 6. Which is hard to do.
Well, he only has one interception. I guess he threw an interception last season in his only pass attempt.
That's what I'm saying. Yes, his first 2 career pass attempts were an interception and a pick 6. So,
well, you look at it the other way, though. That means he's in his last 24 attempts, he's 14 of 24 with 171 yards and 2 touchdowns. He's getting better.
He completed his first 2 passes to somebody.
It's true.
It's just going to be difficult, because you talk about just talent, but scheme too. I think matters. What they've been doing this year in terms of mixing up personnel packages, that's hard on a guy that's just get it thrown in there with a couple days practice. We've said, and Cignetti's talked about, you don't get a ton of practice time leading up to a game to sort of just here's everything you need to know. And to throw him in that situation, that's why the line is where it is. I think it's up to 27.5 now. So,
which it opened at 23. So I thought I saw it open at 23. So that's a substantial movement. That is a movement that shows absolutely no confidence in Michigan. That is not like Vegas trying to be come on, Give us some money. Like we'd love to trap you. Like that is just like a zero confidence in Michigan State thing.
Like, did you ever see? I mean, like you've got some perspective on this. A 4-touchdown favorite in the Spittoon game, and it's Indiana.
Right. I've seen like, Indiana as an underdog at that level.
I'm saying
some of those D'Antonio teams, but yeah. There's a couple things here. So, and I want to talk about this because game state, I think we do have to start talking about a little bit more here. Hoop says it's going to rain Saturday. Cignetti's just going to run the ball, and the defense will hold Michigan State down. IU and VA says, does Sig unemploy Jonathan Smith the way he did Ryan Walters? The one thing I'll say is, let's say it is a rain game. Indiana doesn't like Indiana beat Purdue the way it beat Purdue last year because, like, to your point about maybe not worrying too much about rivalries, they did that because they had to. They did that because they needed coming off of Ohio State. They needed to reinforce, like, yes, but we are this dominant anytime the competition isn't close to us. They don't. I mean, I'm not saying Indiana is going to get to 21-14 and cruise this weekend, but like they don't need to do that this year. Like there's not like I think he can manage these games a little bit differently. Is kind of my point. If that makes sense.
Illinois.
But they weren't trying with Illinois. They threw the ball 6 times in the second half.
No,
they were just running off tackle and halfback power. And Illinois.
Oh, you're just saying. So you're just saying that if they blow them out, it's just because they're naturally better than them. It's not because you're trying.
Yes, there's not. I don't think he's.
No, and I don't think that's
a tackle up 38-0.
They really should. They should bring back James Carpenter just to do that.
I mean, then they'd have to forfeit a game. They can't let that go. I mean, you gotta be careful.
Just to prove a point, they didn't need the game. Even they could get there anyway. No, I don't think he's going to purposely try to embarrass the team, but I don't think he's going to take the foot off the gas. It's like he's wired. They just need to win, and like they'll do whatever.
He's not going to do the Tom Izzo thing where he's like, I'd love for this guy to stick around, so I'm going to keep beating him by like just enough to Well,
I saw somebody say that load management, that they're going to worry about that. I don't see that either. Like they're going to play whoever they need to play as long as they need to play. Like they're not looking ahead. That's not going to factor into his thinking. And they're a healthy roster. They don't really have to worry about that right now. He'll knock on wood, but like in terms of like, this isn't a team that taxes their guys in practice. So like they're ready to play on Saturdays as long as they need to. I don't think that, you're worrying about snap counts. He is, at least.
Well, like the Illinois game is probably instructive of that, right? Like they don't rotate a ton on defense, but they don't need to because Illinois is just going 3 and out, 4 and out all the time. So like you're never really putting your players in the red zone anyway. They'll rotate a decent amount at the skill positions offensively to begin with. Like they'll rotate the 2 running backs, they'll rotate the 2 wide receivers.
Yeah, actually, wait, I do have to. I think because I added the stats up, where I can pull it up. They did not rotate receivers at Oregon.
No, they did not. That's a good point. I think Charlie Becker had like
all. And
Charlie Becker had that one deep shot. You remember that Mendoza.
And I think that came when EJ Williams got banged up for a second. Because most of those snaps came when he looked like he had a leg injury that he had treatment on, but then he came back in. Sorry, this is good. So the starting receivers combined for 180 snaps against Oregon. The rest of the room played 14. Surratt and Cooper combined for 20 of the 28 targets, 71%. And on the season are combined for 57% of the targets. So they actually haven't rotated receivers.
Well, no, but I'm saying rotated bodies.
They haven't rotated. The other receivers only played 14 snaps.
Well, that was in Oregon. Michigan State's not Oregon. That's my point about Illinois being, I think, a little bit more instructive once they get up and they get comfortable. And then I think, okay, let's live in a world where it's like 42-10 Indiana at the end of the third quarter. I think they'll pull their starters like they did against.
I think the starters played still the first drive of the fourth.
I don't think so for Illinois. They played a couple drives in the third quarter against Indiana State, or maybe one drive apiece in the third quarter, and then they left their offensive line, their starting line in for a while in the fourth quarter against Illinois. But I think it was you who pointed out, they were probably doing that. They were probably doing that because Illinois still had its front 6 in.
That's right.
And they were probably just saying, like, we're not gonna risk our backup any more than we're gonna risk our starter. But like, I mean, I think again, let's live in a world where, because I think it was 42-10 Indiana at the end of the third quarter of that Illinois game. Let's live in a world where it's that again. I would be surprised if we see much more of the starting group offensively. And then defensively, again, number one, they don't rotate a ton. We know that. They do a little bit along the line. They don't. The three linebackers are the three linebackers. They don't really rotate too much in the secondary. But if you're constantly, just running drives of 3, 4, 5 plays, was it the Old Dominion game where like they barely rotated at all, and it's like, okay, but that was only something like 46 snaps.
Yeah, 46 snaps, I think it was.
Like there's no point in rotating. You still have to keep guys fresh. You still have to, keep guys sharp and whatever else. I think you're probably talking about a world where, ideally, Indiana is ahead by, let's say, 4 scores, which is, just still somewhat jarring to say out loud, but let's live in a world where Indiana is ahead by like 4 scores in, at the end of the third quarter. I think you pull your starters then.
Well, so you were the one that at the start of the week was like, I don't know, I got a bad feeling. Has that changed now since you've seen the?
So I'm going to let you behind the curtain. That was a plan to rile you up. Because last year
you did get it so wrong.
Last year, I thought, it's just like it's at Michigan State. It was right before the Michigan game. It was a rivalry game, whatever. I said, I think this is going to be problematic for Indiana. And then Michigan State went up 10-0, and you kind of felt like, this isn't going well. But this year, I just resolved to say it again because I knew it would get a rise out of you.
No, it's bananas. Okay, so you don't actually believe that?
No, they're a 27.5 point favorite. I do not believe. I mean, like it would take an act of someone's God, I think, for this to be. I mean, maybe there's a world where Indiana's a little complacent. The weather affects them, and it's not as impressive of a loss, or not as impressive of a win. But no, I do not, especially because it's not just, it's like the mood around Michigan State. Like, we have both covered teams like that where
it absolutely felt like 2023 watching that press conference with Jonathan Smith and the ones we had with Tom Allen, where it's like, I've got no answer.
It starts moving in a direction that everyone that everyone recognizes and no one can control. And
like, they're talking about like figuring out making changes to watch film as a team to figure out all the mistakes they made. I mean, that's bleak. I mean, it's just like it did feel like 23, especially with Allen, where it's just like they got to midseason and everybody kind of knew like this thing's getting bad. The coach staff didn't really have answers how to fix it. Like, I mean, they're midway through the season and talking about, energy and effort. And like, I mean, that's not a good place to be.
No, and it's not good when you have, I mean, it's not good when you have, former Michigan State players saying we thought they quit, and like ones that are on the field with them, not like, oh, I was watching and I was embarrassed, like on the field at field level and being like, oh man, like these guys are just done. These guys are checked out. Some people have asked about Byron Baldwin. So he still has his 4 games. And if you get to a place where I do not believe, and I looked this up and I'm looking it up again, I do not believe it matters when you play the 4 games, because it used to be with the medical red shirts. It's
a basketball thing, though.
Well, it's also a medical red shirt thing.
Yeah,
it's not just basketball; it's a medical red shirt thing. But with the 4-game rule, it doesn't matter when you play the 4 games, and the postseason does not count.
Right.
So, in theory, if Baldwin is ready, and maybe like you look at like Penn State and you say, I don't know if I want to put a freshman in that environment, although God knows what that'll look like by the time Indiana gets there. But if Baldwin is ready, then he can still play 4 games in the regular season and, at least in theory, play in the postseason and retain his red shirt. So like the old rules about at what point do you should now, if you don't think he's going to get healthy, if it's nagging him and all that, at a certain point, you probably just look at him and say, hey, listen, for your development, for your long-term health, for our plan, let's just shut you down, and let's just stop it with like limited practices, or maybe you're doing some weightlifting. Let's just get it fixed. We'll reconvene in the off season. You're going to have a great career here. But if he's close, if he is close, then Indiana can still play him this season and retain his red shirt as long as he doesn't appear in more than 4 games. And the other thing I would say, and then I want to wrap this up. I'm sorry for a shorter one this week, but again, technical difficulties plus Mike and I got a lot of ground to cover. The other thing I would say is, and I'm not advocating for this necessarily, but this is also the kind of season where, like, if you have to break glass in case of emergency, if he's the best option, like, you're competing.
But A, he's not healthy yet. B, and they only have 2 weeks left till he can play.
Right. No, definitely. But my point is, if you're presented with some need,
to
play a 5th game, it's like this is the year you do that, right?
But the need would be this weekend or next weekend.
Weekend, and then
if there's an injury, I guess in the secondary on Saturday, then yeah. But I mean, that's one game. But then you could also not play him because it's not 4 consecutive games. You could just not play him against one of the other ones. So
yeah, I'm just saying, like, that is kind of the other consideration is, like, if you.
My point is just that's a very specific lane that they'd have to go to get to that point, because they could still.
But they're already in a pretty specific lane.
No, but they can still just not play him in another game and save it. Like that's my point. Like they don't have to. If he played against UCLA, he doesn't have to play 5 games. He can still play only 4.
Yeah, sure. Any other business?
I don't know. How are you?
I'm good. How are you? I'm busy. It's a busy time of year.
You got something going on?
I'm revisiting my preseason prediction, and the first 2 sentences are: "It is difficult to imagine the Spartans struggling so much in their second season under Jonathan Smith as they did in their first."
Nailed it.
Aiden Childs will be a year older and wiser. The problem is he might be wiser, and he's looking at the offensive line, and he's saying, "A year ago, I wouldn't have known how much trouble I'm in." I had Indiana 40, Michigan State 20. I think Indiana 40, Michigan State 0 is probably more likely at this point. I don't know if you want to call back your.
I did. I think. Well, I can pull it up. I think I had like 34-10. Let me see. What was it? I had 37-14 in my preseason. I changed it to 44-14. Indiana, obviously.
So you think they'll cover?
Yeah, I made it so they cover. Maybe Michigan State gets like a late score or something.
The only question I have about covering is the weather. Like if it turns into a really rainy day and you are just handing it off. On the other hand, I mean, the other thing.
You mentioned that Purdue game. It was the conditions weren't great there. It was snowing the whole game. I mean, they didn't hide away from that.
And the other thing Graham mentioned is they've really struggled at times defending the run. That Nebraska only ran 67 yards against them, but did rush for 3 touchdowns. USC and UCLA combined for over 525 yards rushing, and they've allowed 8 rushing touchdowns in the last 3 games. And if you look at their explosive, in terms of like explosive runs allowed, it's not good. And so even if this turns into like just a ground and pound kind of game, you could still see a world where there's multiple 100-yard rushers and Indiana's, busting some long runs. And I mean, it's just, it is very difficult given the talent of these two teams, the current sort of direction of their seasons, to see anything other than a heavy Indiana win. I mean, even although that line has stretched out, even a comfortable cover.
And watch special teams. Michigan State's been kind of a disaster the last 2 weeks. Blocked a punt. Nebraska blocked a punt, returned it for a touchdown. They muffed a punt, and Nebraska recovered it. And last week, UCLA faked a punt, and that sort of set up the stage for the blowout. It was a close game going into half. Right before halftime at midfield, UCLA faked a punt, and then that's when they kind of ran away with things. So, I mean, those are the details that get lost, especially when a team's struggling. And Indiana's been just like their special teams gets kind of overshadowed, obviously, because it's a lesser part of the game. But it might be the unit that's made like the most consistent amount of plays this year. Just like never had a down moment.
I mean,
all across the board.
Less friction between you two today.
We can start. We'll get back to it.
Just
the
wait
live
until
podcast. We had to save something for the live
fist
podcast.
Fist fight at the live podcast. All right. We'll end it there again. One more time to stump for that. Monday, October 20th, home field at Tracks down on Kirkwood in downtown Bloomington. We will be live from 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. with our usual weekly Mind Your Banners just a little bit earlier in the week because the good folks at home field are going to host us. At some point, maybe we'll do a 203-minute podcast. We'll see. If they go to the national championship game, we'll do a 203-minute podcast. He's Mike Niziolek. I'm Zach Osterman. Thank you all so much for joining us. Look out for that podcast as well with Graham Couch, a Thursday. I think I have it. I think probably around lunchtime. And please, as always, like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. We love what we've been able to expand to bring to you guys there. For the Bloomington Herald-Times, for the Indianapolis Star, I'm Zach Osterman. Thank you so much for joining us. We will see you tomorrow. We'll see you this weekend. And we'll see you next week at Home Field and Tracks.